It's been a minute, guys. Let's catch up. How's it going, YouTube? RoboSushi here, bringing you guys another BT9 rulings video. This should have happened much sooner, but as I said, for a little bit of a catch-up, we did have some schoolwork start for me. I'm trying to get some schooling done. That's going to be a little hectic, but once I figure out how to get the timing right, like I've kind of done for this video, hopefully I'll be able to get some more content out for you guys. But with all that being said, I'm not going to give you guys any crazy spiels right now. We'll save any of those for the end of the video. Let's go ahead and hop into this set of BT9 rulings that I know some of you are probably curious about, and I know some of you have already asked me questions about. So let's hop into it. All right, everyone, into our first ruling. Man, that feels good to say. So what we have here is MetalGreymon, BT1 MetalGreymon, and X Antibody, BT1 MetalGreymon, for those of you who may not be as common with this card, since it is from 1.0. What we're worried about here is not the security attack +2, but the when attacking, lose 5 memory. Seems like a hefty cost. X Antibody, of course, is the other one, this one attacking effect most people know, where you get to Digivolve into an X Antibody in its traits Digimon by paying its Digivolution cost when attacking. So here, the question that I've always had asked of me is, if I swing with this MetalGreymon and then use the effect of X Antibody, do I still lose the 5 memory? Or anything like that for different cards, which I'll go over here in a second. So what happens here is you swing with the MetalGreymon. This triggers 2 when attacking effects. It triggers the MetalGreymon's when attacking effect, and it triggers the X Antibody's when attacking effect. You, as the player who triggered the effects, gets to activate them in any order. So here, you will activate X Antibody first, Digivolving into, say, Wargreymon X for 4 memory. Now, Wargreymon X, of course, doesn't trigger any when Digivolving effects. The rest of our board is pretty clear, so no other effects in this scenario are triggered by the evolution. Now, the only other when attacking effect, the only other triggered effect that is pending would be the MetalGreymon's when attacking lose 5 memory. But since the Digimon is no longer the same MetalGreymon that triggered the when attacking lose 5 memory, the effect fails to activate. Thus, you no longer have to lose the 5 memory. Now, if you do it the vice versa and you lose the 5 memory first and then Digivolve, yeah, then you're going to lose 5 memory. But if you activate X Antibody first to then go into something to Digivolve on top of it, in this situation it's this, it could have been MetalGreymon X, either way, you no longer have to lose the 5 memory on attack. The same thing applies to any of the blockers that lose memory, say like the Kabuterimon, from the starter decks, or any of the 1-cost, 2-cost blockers, whatever you may choose. If you tuck an X Antibody underneath, swing, activate X Antibody's effect first to then Digivolve into something when attacking, then you no longer have to lose the 2 memory from the blocker effect that a lot of those blockers have. So this is an interaction that I've had asked several times on if they have to lose the memory. The blocker one came up more recently, but this one comes up a little bit more often because people like to tech this card into Wargreymon X. But with all that being said, that is how that resolves. You do not have to lose the memory as long as you activate your effects in the proper order. Alrighty, everyone. So into our next color, I guess I'm going to go by color at this point. This will be yellow. I don't have anything for blue. I mean, you can technically consider this blue, whatever. But we have Magnamon X Antibody, and this is going to involve a few interactions with its interruptive effect that adds itself to security that I didn't go over in the first video because I just didn't think about them, but plenty of other people have asked me questions since then. So what Magnamon X Antibody states that we're worried about here is its all turns effect when this Digimon would be deleted. You may place the top card of this Digimon, aka the Magnamon X, as the top card of your security to prevent the deletion. So the question that I always have asked been several times, is what happens when my opponent has an active Congo? Now, just to shorten it down, it'll be up on screen. Congo's effect that we're worried about here, it's just main, none of your opponent's Digimon with 7 cost or less can attack players, and your opponent cannot add Digimon to either security stacks, or cards cannot be added to either security stacks by opponent's effects. So what happens if you would delete the Magnamon X, say, for a Gaia Force? Pretty short card, I'm not even going to worry about putting it on screen. Most people know about it. Delete one of your opponent's Digimon. So at this point, Magnamon X would try to trigger its all turns effect to add its, well, it triggers its all turns effect to add itself to security to prevent the deletion. It's interruptive, so it would try to do that. But since it cannot move itself to security via the effect of Congo being active, the effect just resolves without effect. So it cannot activate properly, so it does not get added to security. Thus, it does not prevent the deletion, even though it does have a source underneath. So That is the first interaction. Pretty straightforward, nothing too crazy on that one. Just had people come up, what happens? Does it actually get to pull it off? But with an active Congo, it just doesn't happen. The second interaction that I've had come up is plenty of times. This comes up often, is what happens when my opponent uses Wyvern's Breath. Put that up on screen just for people. Most people know what this card does, but it is one of your opponent's Digimon gets minus 15,000 DP for the turn. So, Wyvern's Breath is activated, targeting the Magnamon. Now, Magnamon will try to prevent its deletion, so it gets its DP reduced to 0. That doesn't effectively delete it. Then Rules Processing kicks in. Rules Processing tries to delete a Digimon with 0 DP. So, in this situation, Magnamon X will then be able to prevent that deletion. It still retains the minus DP. It'll try to prevent that deletion. We're going to assume that it has no buff from the Magnamon underneath, by the way, by preventing the deletion by moving itself to the top card of my security stack. Now, that interruptive effect has resolved, preventing the deletion. Rules Processing checks again. We have a Magnamon. The Magnamon is still at 0 DP. It will be deleted. Now, I guess, technically, if the Magnamon had another Vmon or something underneath, then you could prevent it by armor purging, and then still dying. So, know that you don't really get around the minus DP. You are still going to die unless for some reason the Digimon beneath it has more DP than the Digimon on top of it. Like, if this Magnamon, for some reason, had more DP than the Magnamon X, sure, it would live. But in this situation, it does not. Same thing with the rookie situation, if something under the Magnamon. It would still get deleted, but it would be able to add itself to security beforehand to prevent the deletion. It would still die to 0 DP. Same as the Armor Purge ruling that we've gone over in the past, except it uses Magnamon's Super Armor Purge. Alright everyone, so I know my camera's a little in the way for this one, but I'll make sure all the cards are gone over. So what we have here is this. Player A, it's player B's turn currently. Player A has a Pomumon. All turns, players can't play Digimon by effects. Now, some of you may know where this is going. DPP had this come up in one of his videos recently, and I know a lot of people may have caused some stink. I didn't really see the comments, but it is ruled correctly, so I'm going to go over the ruling now. In player B's trash, they have an Anguamon. This could be any 6k DP purple or yellow Digimon. I just had the Anguamon on hand. And then player B has a Flame Hell Scythe in hand. Flame Hell Scythe, of course, states main one of your opponent's Digimon gets minus 6k DP for the turn. Then play one purple or yellow Digimon card with 6k DP or less from your trash without paying its memory cost. So what happens here is player B will go ahead and activate Flame Hell Scythe. Assume that the board state is legal and they can legally activate Flame Hell Scythe. So then Flame Hell Scythe has to resolve fully. That is important for this interaction. It will target Pomumon, giving it negative 6,000 DP. Now, rules processing happens after effects fully finish activating. Right now, the 6,000 DP is given in the middle of, or for the first part of the effect for Flame Hell Scythe. There is still a second part that has to finish activating before we kick into rules processing. So here, Flame Hell Scythe gets 6,000 DP to Pomumon. Pomumon effectively is living on the field at 0 DP right now because rules processing hasn't kicked in. So then it will try to do its second effect, which is to play out a 6k DP Digimon, which is the Anguamon. But that is when the all turns effect of Pomumon kicks in, and then it is not able to play out the Anguamon because it is an effect that would play out a Digimon, and Pomumon is still on the field. So the second part of Flame Hell Scythe whiffs, and Anguamon stays in the trash. Flame Hell Scythe finishes its activation. It's at this point rules processing kicks in, sees that the Pomumon is at 0 DP, and then now will delete the Pomumon. Remember that in certain situations like this, I mean, the Pillamon's the other card that could come up, the effect, rules processing doesn't kick in until after Flame Hell Scythe resolves. So at that point, Pomumon is still on the field, or Pillamon is still on the field, and you will not be able to play a Digimon out via this effect. I know a lot of tax control lists and security control and Ophanimon loop lists and stuff like that are coming out. Pomumon may show up a little bit more frequently, and that may come up some. Alright everyone, so into our next set of rulings. All of these rulings are going to involve the black cards for the Alphamon list, because that is the black deck to play. These are the most rulings that I could really think of that I could come up with right now that are interesting and they are pertinent to the game. So we're going to go over them, and if anything else comes up, I'm sure I'll add it in another video. So what we have here on field is a general Alphamon stack with an X antibody underneath. I'm not going to add all the Dex, Doruga, and Dex Doru and all that craziness because I don't want to make a huge stack that I have to mess with. But here, Doru, Doruga, and Ryuda, and we have an X Antibody in source. All of you know what X Antibody does, but I'm going to put it up on screen anyway so that you guys can see what it does. And then we have Yuji Musha on the field. Now, what is important here about Yuji Musha is it's your turn effect. When one of your black Digimon with X Antibody in its traits attacks, you may suspend this tamer to place one card. Important that it says card with X Antibody from your hand under that Digimon as its bottom Digivolution card. Now, some of you may know I will have to go over X Antibodies when attacking effect is what we know, but it's the main effect that I want to know here, that I want to go over, where when you add it to the source, it has to be in a Digimon that does not have X Antibody in its traits already, or X Antibody in its sources already. So it's worded a little weird, so I know a lot of people think, well, if there's another card underneath the X Antibody, can I add it again? No, there has to be no X Antibody in the sources to use the main effect of X Antibody. But there are ways to get around that. So in this situation, if you decide to swing in with the Doru-Greymon, this will trigger two things. It'll trigger the X Antibody effect, which I'm going to decide not to activate because it is a can Digivolve, so it's basically a May effect, and then Yuji Musha. So I'm going to activate Yuji Musha, which will then be able to take an X Antibody traded card from my hand, aka another X Antibody, and slide it underneath the stack. So even though I can't use the effect of X Antibody to then tuck it underneath the Doru-Greymon, I can basically cheat it in a couple of ways, one of which is Yuji Musha, which just lets me place an X Antibody card underneath it. So here, now we have two X Antibodies. So let's say something happens, this Doru doesn't die on the next turn, and then I swing. You can swing, have both X Antibodies trigger, Digivolve this into a level 6, and then use the second effect of the X Antibody to Digivolve it into a level 7, aka let's say Digivolve it into an Alphamon, and then Digivolve it again into an Alphamon Ouryuken. So, and it's a little bit of an interesting situation that you can go on, but you have to basically cheat in the second X Antibody underneath the stack if you're going to do it that way. There is another way to do this too. Let's say we'll leave the Yuji on field just so I don't have to move it, and we have this X Antibody in trash. We Digivolve into the Alphamon for 3, draw a card. Alphamon's Wind Digivolving effect. This is BT9 Alphamon, by the way. Place one card with X Antibody in its traits from your trash underneath this Digimon as its bottom Digivolution card. Now remember, again, it says with one card with X Antibody. So we'll take this X Antibody option because it has X Antibody in its traits, tuck it underneath. Now we have two X Antibodies. This is a little bit less likely to do anything because there's no other level 6 that we can go on top of with this Alphamon to then go into another Alphamon Ouryuken, and there's no level 8s in the game. But in this situation here, you do have the effect that you can trigger both X Antibodies if you want to. Maybe something happens and this Alphamon gets de-Digivolved, then you can do the same shenanigans with the Doru-Greymon that I mentioned in the previous example. So just know that you can't use X Antibody twice using its main effect. You can't X Antibody and then X Antibody again, but you can use effects like Yuji or effects like Alphamon to cheat it in, more or less, so that you can have multiple copies of X Antibody in source. Alright everyone, so into a ruling that somebody told me in the last video that I did, you should have put this ruling in, and you're absolutely right. I should have, I wanted to. I didn't own any copies of this card. This is Alphamon Ouryuken. So we're going to go over that right now. So in this example, let's say we have like 4 memory. We have Alphamon and X Antibody. We just have a whole Alphamon stack. What matters is it's level 6 for this example because I don't have an Ouryuken because I didn't want to take it out. And then we have X Antibody. X Antibody's effect that we're worried about here is all turns, effects can't trash X Antibody in this Digimon's Digivolution cards. Again, X Antibody will be up on that side of the screen, and we're going to go over it to be right up here. And then we Digivolve into Alphamon Ouryuken, paying the 7 memory because we don't have an Ouryumon, and, you know, activate his Wind Digivolving effect. That doesn't matter for this example. And then we have the end of turn effect. Once per turn, you may return up to 7 non-Digi-Egg cards with X Antibody and their traits from this Digimon's Digivolution cards to the bottom of the deck in any order. If you do, gain a memory for each card returned this way. So here the question is can you return X Antibody? It's a question I had all the time. It's what one of the commenters in the last video said. And the answer to that question is yes, you can return X Antibody. The reason for this is so you could technically take all of these cards, the Alphamon, the X Antibody, all this jazz, and this would be 5 memory that you would gain back and you'd bottom deck it. Why can you do that to X Antibody? Its effect states that it cannot be trashed. That is true, it cannot be trashed, but nothing in its effect says that it can't be bottom decked. Since the card is bottom decked by the effect of Alphamon Ouryuken and not sent to trash then bottom deck, since it just goes straight from source to the bottom of the deck, you are able to go ahead, strip it, put it to the bottom of the deck, and use it to gain a memory and put the cards on the bottom of the deck. Again, this is because the effect never trashes it. It just sends it to the bottom. So it's important to know that if it is going to be bottom decked, you can use it for the effect of Alphamon to gain a little bit of extra memory. Alright everyone, so now that I'm done with the black card rulings, we're going to go, or I should say Alphamon rulings at this point, right? I'm going to go into our only purple rulings that I had for this video. Now, what we have here is the board state looks as this. Player B, it is current player B's end of turn. So we'll say that's about like this, they pass turn. They have a MetalGreymon and an Agumon. All that matters here is these are two different levels. Our player A side has 2 DeathXmon. What we're worried about here isn't the on-player one Digivolving effect. We're worried about the end of opponent's turn, once per turn effect. For DeathXmon, which states delete all of your opponent's Digimon with the lowest play cost. So the question I had asked here is what happens when I have 2 DeathXmon on my side of the field and my opponent passes turn to me with 2 different play cost Digimon. So what we have here is we'll pass turn, we've entered the end of turn. This triggers both DeathXmon at the same time. So they both trigger at the same time, but since the way the Digimon effect resolution works, they activate one at a time. So they trigger simultaneously and then activate one at a time. This will then have the DeathXmon, let's say this DeathXmon, activate, deleting the lowest play cost Digimon, deleting the Agumon. Now we have to go to our only other activation, assuming nothing else was triggered by that, which they aren't in this case, and we have our second DeathXmon, which will then delete the lowest play cost Digimon, which in this case is the MetalGreymon, since we have 2, deleting that, thus clearing the board of all their Digimon. Now remember, this deletes all Digimon with the lowest play cost, so if you had like 3 cost Digimon and then a level 7, all the 3 costs would go away, and then the 7 cost Digimon would then be deleted as well, and then the turn will then pass over to the opponent, pass over to player A's side, with an empty board. So remember that they both trigger at the same time, but they activate one at a time. So if there's 2 separate cost Digimon, they will both end up getting deleted by these effects. Alright everyone, into our right card rulings, and as you see, yes, that's right, she's back. Mother D-Reaper. You thought the rulings were over with in EX02 and all the craziness. Absolutely not, because the deck has continued in popularity because of X Antibody, especially after the fact that Luca won one of those first BT9 regionals with it at Otakon. So, without further ado, shoutouts to Luca, by the way. Thank you for making this this deck not go away. I really appreciate it. Kappa. But anyway, X Antibody is in the source of our Mother D-Reaper. Mother D-Reaper has 6 sources, 6 searchers and a X Antibody. So you may remember in the Alphamon example how you could get around not being able to trash X Antibody because it bottom decks it. What doesn't get around that is going to be Reaper. Reaper says when you would play this Digimon, for those of you that don't remember this card from the previous rulings video in EX02, you may trash 7 or more Digivolution cards from the bottom of one of your Mother D-Reaper to reduce this Digimon's, set this Digimon's play cost to 0. Errata, not on this card, but the errata sets it. So in this situation, you would if you tried to use the effect of this Reaper, you would not be able to set its play cost to 0. Why? I have 7 sources. You cannot trash the X Antibody in the source to play the D-Reaper. Most people know this by now, but at the same time, this is important to go over. So even though Mother D-Reaper has 7 sources, since you cannot trash X Antibody, and Reaper specifically needs you to trash the cards, then you are not able to set the play cost of Reaper to 0. You would need to have, say, an 8th card in source. So effectively what this means is that unless there's some other card that adds a source that you could legally trash, something like Parasitemon, you have to have 7 searchers underneath Mother D-Reaper to trash so that this X Antibody can stay, to reduce the play cost via the effect of Reaper. So just know that if you have 7 sources and your opponent's playing, make sure one of those 7 sources is not an X Antibody, because that card cannot legally be trashed and they are not able to reduce the play cost. Set the play cost, sorry. Alrighty, so into our second example, and of course, yes, it is another Mother D-Reaper example, because this question has come up. It's not usually too crazy, most people know how this works, but at the same time, I have had the question pop up, so I feel like it's important to address to the people. What we have here is a Mother D-Reaper, this time a legal Mother D-Reaper for the effect of Reaper to be played. We have 7 searchers underneath. Our opponent has an active Congo in play. So for those of you that don't remember, I'm going to have it up on screen over here from the previous example, but Congo keeps your 7 costs or your 7 cost or lower Digimon from attacking players. We're not going to worry about the second effect, it doesn't matter. So they have an active Congo. We use the effect of Reaper. We're going to play it when you would play this, so it's being played. You're going to go ahead, trash 7 sources, throw them to the trash, set Reaper's play cost to 0. Now the question that I've had come up is, can this Reaper attack the player? And the answer to that is, of course, yes. Now, yes, it sets its play cost to 0 in the process of being played. The second it is on field and it has been successfully played, it now is back to a 20 cost Digimon. So the Reaper will be able to attack activated to an attacking effect, tucking the searchers, restanding, doing all of that shenanigans, but Congo does not stop this. It only sets its play cost to 0 when it's in the act of being played. After it is played and alive on the field and exists, then it is a 20 play cost, and it in fact can swing even though there is an active Congo effect up. Alright everyone, so into our next white rulings. These are both going to involve a card that I love. I love how it looks. It may not be the best card, but it is incredible looking. Omnimon Merciful Mode. There's going to be 2 examples I'm going to go over. The first one is going to involve a Wargreymon X Antibody. So, in this situation, we've Digivolved into Omnimon Merciful Mode on our turn, we've passed it over to our opponent's turn, and they've passed it back to us. Now, the question that I have happen here is what happens with the effect of Wargreymon. Now, I know that's a lot to go over, so I'll go over the effects now. What we have here is Omnimon Merciful Mode's start of your turn effect. This is all that matters here. This is trash the top card of this Digimon. If you do, trash the top card of your opponent's security stack. This is a mandatory effect. I know it's an if you do because maybe there's some effect that keeps that from happening, like it has no sources, but this is a mandatory effect, so if you have sources, you have to do this, just to know. And then we have Wargreymon X Antibody's all turns effect. When a card is removed from your opponent's security stack, gain 1 memory. So what happens here is, start of your turn, you activate the effect of Omnimon Merciful Mode, trashing the top card, basically like a Digivolve, sending it to the trash, burning one of your opponent's security. This Wargreymon X Antibody sees the removal of the security and thus is able to trigger its all turns effect when a card is removed from your opponent's security stack, gain 1 memory. So you're at 3, you burn the security from the Merciful Mode, this triggers Wargreymon X, you gain an extra memory at the start of your turn. Little bit of a small interaction, but it's fun to note so that people are going to play this, maybe play this Merciful Mode, that in fact this Wargreymon will see that burn and then be able to gain you that little bit of extra memory. Alright everyone, so here comes one of my most enjoyable interactions with Omnimon Merciful Mode. It's going to have a Shivamon in source. For those of you that don't know about Shivamon's your turn effect, when this Digimon becomes unsuspended during your unsuspend phase, trash the top card of your opponent's security stack. This is important for how this interaction works. We already know Omnimon Merciful Mode's ability. I'm not going to go ahead and put it up on screen because it was just up there for the previous example. So let's say it's back on our turn. Our opponent did not delete this Omnimon Merciful Mode, and we're at 3 on our turn. Start of our turn kicks in. Remember how the phases in this game work. Start of turn, unsuspend, draw, hatch, main, end of turn. Now, while some may argue that the start of turn and the end of turn are not dedicated phases necessarily, there's actually an email that kind of puts them in this weird zone. We're not going to get into that today, but just know that that's the general order unless some shenanigans happens, like you've skipped your turn for some reason, from other effects. But because of that order, the Omnimon Merciful Mode start of turn effect triggers first, before the unsuspend phase. So Omnimon Merciful Mode will then trash the top card, trash it itself, leaving this Shivamon suspended on the field. So our opponent then trashes the top card of their security because of the effect of Omnimon Merciful Mode. Start of turn, unsuspend phase. We now unsuspend Shivamon during the unsuspend phase. It is a Shivamon at this point and not an Omnimon Merciful Mode, thus burning another security from our opponent's security stack. And then the rest of our turn continues as is. So just know that because of how that start of turn, unsuspend, draw happens in that specific order, that start of turn happens, trashing a card, then it's the Shivamon that unsuspends, not the Merciful Mode, and then you're able to burn another security. This situation almost never comes up because of the fact that neither of these cards are ever played hardly, but it's a fun interaction, and if somebody does try to play it, I need to see it on video in like a store championship match or something. It would be incredible. I love it. But all that being said, this is how that interaction would work, just in case you do encounter that. Alright everyone, and that is it for the rulings that I have for you today. If you guys are wondering why I'm still in the small box, I did want to go over this playmat. I know a viewer on one of my previous videos commented about it. This is a Digimon Street Fighter crossover where a buddy of mine misspoke on Guilmon and called it Guilmon, and it kind of started this thing to fuse Digimon and Street Fighter characters. So if this is something you guys are interested in, he was thinking about maybe producing some of these to sell to you guys if people enjoyed the product a lot, as much as I have enjoyed it when he gave it to me. So if that is something you guys are interested in, leave a comment down below. I'll see what I can do about maybe getting some of these out to you guys if you guys want to purchase one. But with all that being said, guys, that'll be the end of today's video. Thank you so much for the continued support on the channel. I know there has been a lull, but we are still going to make some content. I just got to get some schooling and stuff worked out and find out the good time to work on all that so I can get this content out to you guys in a timely manner for in the future. But I did want to get this ruling video out because I know some people were looking forward to it. And again, thank you guys for all the support. If you did enjoy the content today, leave a like on the video. If you're new here and like rulings, gameplay, and some deck profile videos, subscribe to the channel. We will have more of that in the future. So hit the notification bell so when those videos come out. Also, leave any comments down below about some rulings that I missed. I always miss some rulings, or there's some ruling interactions that people always come up with that I don't think about. Leave those down below. I'll try to get those as soon as I can. Again, thank you guys so much for continued support. Channel's at over 1,500 subscribers, so that is incredible. I never thought I would get that far when I started making these ruling videos, but it has been awesome, and I love seeing all the comments and everything that you guys put down below. So other than that, guys, again, thank you from the bottom of my heart for all the support, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.